Hello and a very warm welcome back to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. This week we're bringing you a very special edition of the programme focusing on the Me Too movement in the region. This, 3 years after it spread globally, paving the way for women's voices to be heard. Now, one of those countries where women have broken their silence on sexual violence in the Middle East is Iran. And it all started out on social media. Among those accused of sexual harassment and assault, acclaimed artist Aydin Ardashlu and composer Mohsen Namju, who's been dubbed the Bob Dylan of Iran. Both men have strongly denied those allegations. And then there's archaeologist tour guide Keyvan Imam Verdi. He has been accused of drug and alcohol facilitated rape. The former art student has since been detained and charged. Now, earlier I spoke to one of the brave survivors who was the pioneer of this movement. She asked me to protect her identity. Don't forget, this is a country where the topic itself is a taboo. Let's take a listen.
I was drugged and raped 3 years ago, and that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I was living with that trauma for 3 years. And a few weeks ago, there were some talks on Twitter about sexual assault, and that made me face my trauma again and realize that I still haven't healed at all. And reading other people's stories and talking to my friends gave me the courage to speak out about my own experience. A few weeks ago, I was just talking to some friends, and I told them what happened, and they were really, really supportive. And they said that if I write my story, they will publish it, and then we'll see what we can do about it. So yeah, we just decided to use photo-based social media like Instagram as as a political platform, because in a country where you can't really count on laws or the police, you have to use everything you can, and I think social media gave us that power to raise our voice. I always wanted to write about it and talk about it because I had a feeling that this guy has done the same thing to other people, but I wasn't sure, so I wanted to write about it so that other people know about it and stay away from him because I didn't want anyone else to get raped, obviously. But when we posted it, we didn't expect it to escalate like this, and I didn't expect to hear from 40 other women that the same thing has happened to them. Um, so I'm really happy that eventually this guy got arrested and many other women found the courage to break their silence and speak out. But also, I think it acted as a catalyst for this movement, what has turned into a movement right now, where people just share their experiences of sexual assaults and rape, and it paved the path for a long overdue conversation on consent and sexual assault and so on.
Let's turn our attention to Egypt, where according to a United Nations study, 99% of women have experienced sexual harassment in their lifetime. And it was during the summer months that hundreds of accusers emerged online, sparking a new Me Too wave in the country. Here's a report from our team on the ground.
The Fairmont Hotel. In 2014, this palatial edifice in the heart of Cairo became the grim setting of a gang rape. An 18-year-old woman was drugged and then abused by 7 well-off men. This summer, after years of silence, she decided to speak out, telling her story over Instagram. A wave of public outrage followed. Since then, more and more women have taken to the internet, one of the last free places for them in the country, to declare, "I was harassed."
أنا تعرضت للتحرش.
One journalist who has followed this phenomenon closely explained to us that social media has been essential.
Social media does create this anonymity, which helps them, express freely, as though they're speaking, to a friend or someone that's closer to them. There isn't any censorship, which is really important. The reason why they start to speak now is because this ripple effect. When one girl comes out and speaks, then it kind of encourages other girls, to speak out.
But it is still risky for victims to speak out. Some witnesses of the Fairmont affair have been arrested and accused by the public prosecutor of participating in debauchery. Some experts say the legal system is stacked against the victim.
We have the laws that criminalize harassers and rapists and all of these things, but the practice is different. The practice is always to blame the victim. And you cannot just argue with even with the judge. Of course, girls now are really terrified of reporting, and they cannot actually report. There is no justice for girls, that's for sure. That's what's happening now.
Egypt has a long way to go. Mohsin Hassan runs an organisation fighting for women's rights. She has been accused by the authorities of corrupting the country's moral fabric and as a result has been banned from travelling and had her assets frozen. Her outlook is bleak.
You have a patriarchal moral judgment on women generally and on people. There is no public space. This authority is seeing that there are good women and bad women. And those good women, they need protection and they have rights. And bad women need and deserve to be punished.
The Fairmont Hotel affair has highlighted the perverse reality of a justice system failing to protect victims in a country where 99% of women report having been sexually harassed.
Now, to shed more light on sexual abuse in Egypt and the region, I'd like to welcome Mona Al-Tahawi to the programme. She's a feminist author, her latest being The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls. Mona, welcome back to Middle East Matters.
Thank you for having me, Sanam.
Mona, this may be referred to as a new wave, but it's certainly not a new phenomena, is it?
It really isn't, because sadly, as your report showed, sexual violence against women and girls in Egypt is endemic. But I think what really makes this moment stand out is that it's a moment of reckoning for women and girls in the same way that 2011, January 2011, was a moment of reckoning with the state. Now, women and girls are reckoning not just with the state, but with the street, public life, and with the home, private life. And that's why I call it a feminist revolution beginning in Egypt.
Mona, you referred to it as a moment of reckoning, but over the past weeks, I've been speaking to a number of survivors in both Egypt and Iran. Some say they've been mistreated. Others have even been blamed for what happened to them.
That doesn't surprise me in the least, because in Egypt, we have been living under a military-backed regime since 1952. The regime itself is predatory. In 2005, our former dictator at the time, Hosni Mubarak, sent his police to sexually assault female activists and journalists. In 2011, March 2011, less than a month after our revolution in Egypt forced Mubarak to step down, the military junta running Egypt sexually abused female activists through so-called virginity tests, which are sexual violence. It's a form of sexual violence. So the state itself is predatory. So the last place to expect justice from is that predatory state.
Now, Mona, what about this new law which protects the privacy of victims and survivors, which has been passed in Egypt, a regime that you're referring to as predatory? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that when we talk about laws, we have to ask who is writing the law and why are they writing that law? And when you live under a patriarchal system, be it Egypt, Iran, or any other country, and patriarchy obviously is universal, you have to understand that it is patriarchy that is writing those laws, and patriarchy will never punish patriarchy. And so women are finding themselves between a rock and a hard place. And that rock and a hard place is truly, it's more like a triangle, the state, the street, and the home. So we have to look for justice elsewhere. And that justice is what these women are doing now, what they're beginning, which is to speak. Because in the same way that activists had to break a barrier of fear to start the revolution in Egypt, women and girls and LGBTQ people in Egypt, because we're all suffering from patriarchy, we have to break the barrier of fear. And that's what I celebrate in what is happening in Egypt today. Less the law and more the women and girls speaking out.
Yes, but there is also this concern that these disclosures won't necessarily lead to deep social change in our region, right? What you're referring to as a very patriarchal system.
I'm seeing that deep social change begin, Sanam, because I'm hearing from so many women and queer friends saying, I am done with my circle of friends. I can't believe my parents think like this. I can't believe that even my male activist friends think like this. This is how the revolution begins. Your report had a female journalist saying that the online space is the only free space. This is like the lead up to the 2011 revolution, when Egyptians were finding each other online and saying, I count and I deserve to be free. Now, for a revolution to happen, of course, you have to have feet on the ground, courage that confronts the state. That courage right now in Egypt has begun online. And in the United States, where I live now, we have seen incredible social movements begin online and incredible social change, including the Black Red Revolution that is happening in the United States now, Black Lives Matter. This is how I compare the two together. Women are saying we are done, and that's how social change begins. It's less from the law that the state gives you and more from the demands that you make, and you say, I deserve to be free of sexual violence. I am seeing that happen in Egypt and Iran now.
Mona, lastly and very briefly, if you can, we do have to look at the other side if we can. Today, it's very easy, as you know, to post on social media, and there is an absence of filters. So surely we, you and I, have a bigger responsibility on our hands. Briefly, if you can.
I think women have been silenced for too long using this notion that, oh my God, how do I know what you're saying is true? There is no woman that is willing to put herself out there and say, I was sexually assaulted just for laughs or for a lie. So, and we have to understand that this is happening in a country, Egypt, that is criminalizing women for just posting selfies and videos on TikTok. So we have to ask, what is driving this? And it's a patriarchal attempt to silence women. We must not be silenced.
And of course, that fight goes on that note. Mona Altay, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us here on Middle East Matters. And thank you for watching. You can catch all our shows on our Facebook and Twitter pages.